everyone, and welcome to another installment of Curriculum of Fear Live, the series in which I take a look at various educational shenanigans taking place in our world. Hope everyone's having a good Sunday, a good Easter Sunday for those of you that celebrate such things, unlike a heathen such as me. This is a kind of a outgrowth of something that happened on Thursday, pardon me. So for the April 1st episode of the Lords of the Night, I decided to pull a April Fool's gag by changing things up a bit and having a multi-layered fake out of different things. And I won't go into all the details. You can watch it for yourself if you'd like on the Lords of the Night playlist. Regardless, in the course of that, we watched a video from a channel that I'd never looked at before that deals with education, and a random selection from that channel the title of it caught my attention. But it turned out that that was the second episode of a series on equity education. And as we watch that video, and again, you can go watch it for yourself on the April 1st Lords of the Night stream, they talked a lot about concepts, but no details. Abstract ideas without specification. Now, that's nothing new, of course, if you've been paying attention to my channel for a while now. But at the end of it, the host of that series said, in the next episode, we'll talk about how we make this work, or something to that effect. So it was promised, and we'll see if that's fulfilled, that this episode, this one we have in front of us now, will have the how and the mechanics of achieving equitable education or something. I suppose we'll find out together because I don't know myself yet. But the title of this experience we're about to have is Supporting the Whole Child and Promoting Equity as Leaders, Heart and Tips, Bridging the Gap, Episode 3. If that's not a mouthful, I don't know what is. So, with all that as preamble, a few hellos to those of you who have joined me on this Sunday morning for whatever we're about to experience. Matt Barnes, Jaeger Pony, Mike R, Gen T Maxi, It's a Llama, Arc 210, Zach Osborne, Zalbla, Dr. Keeve, Nobody Not Me. Let's see, and is that everybody? No, Johnny Hellcat, John Sizlowski, if I said that correctly, I hope I did. Lexi Mads, well, I guess we can start now. Raziel. Hello, everyone. Hope you're all having a good morning. All right, without much more preamble than that, I'll start off. A few seconds for sound test. You guys tell me if you can hear this, and then we'll begin. This clock's in at just under 15 minutes, so we'll probably be here for about an hour or so. Let's find out.
There is a new pandemic, and that's called fear.
Ooh, a new pandemic, and that's called fear. A pandemic of fear. Seems appropriate for a curriculum of fear. You guys hear that all right? Robert Pincus, good morning. No Name, good morning. Sounds good, says Matt Barnes. Thank you, Point Curation. The Whole Child versus Solomon's Approach. Now. Let's see what there's so much packed into that title. And of course, as we learned from the previous episode, our host here jumps from speaker to speaker and topic to topic, but at least he has or at least previously had sort of like a little guide to tell us where we were in the conversation. Oh, and by the way, again, you'd have to watch the first episode to get more context, but so far as I know, all of the people our host here is speaking to are administrators and or educators involved in public schools. Okay, that is important. Public education. Schools that accept federal funding, schools that are, restrained under the Civil Rights Act of 1964, specifically Title VI and Title IX, depending. But either way, they're supposedly restricted by the Civil Rights Act. And there was a lot to say in the previous video about bewilderment as to how their policies and their philosophies that they were espousing work under those restrictions. So let's proceed.
We have to lessen the level of fear by making sure folks are healthy and safe.
Sure, that'd be great. I don't know if you need to talk to the politicians that are currently running things, because it seems like we need to be reminded every day to be more afraid and to maintain our fear and to maintain our worry. But that's a whole other conversation.
I think it would be an understatement to say that we're living through life-changing and challenging times.
Oh, okay, that's part of the opening. So again, on the previous entry, we heard that same thing. So this is all part of the standard opening of this series, apparently. And again, I'm really hoping that I'm not going to get some kind of copyright thing for the music, because I can't take it out because it's underpinning everything in the video. So just to try to mitigate that, I may occasionally interrupt the video. I know it's annoying. It's a precautionary measure. I'm living under a pandemic of fear, guys. Oh, why? I keep my intros short, and the music is pleasant. It's not all like, anyway. Okay, we get it. I'm sorry. I do apologize. I don't like doing it, but it's just my own paranoia. Yeah, so episode 3, Heart and Tips. Well, now that's a much more economical title than what you actually put on the video. But anyway, yeah, this comes from a channel or an organization called Education Elements. And as I'm looking at it the last couple of days, I'm thinking I might visit this from time to time as well. It looks like a nice supplement to the National Association of Independent Schools as a clearinghouse for different ideas about education.
So now you're thinking about, how can I start making these changes?
Oh, and also our host, Anthony Kim, has some sort of power object fixation with this carpenter's level. He was holding on to it for dear life in the last episode, and it makes its appearance again. Maybe if he doesn't tell us what it's there for, we should probably give it a name. Like Levi the level? Levy the level? I don't know.
And how can I start thinking about adapting for a new kind of school system? And so this episode is really talking to leaders about the heart that's required and how we empathize with the people around us to make some of these hard changes that are required.
Okay, that's not exactly what you promised at the end of the last episode, I don't think. Okay, so in this episode, we're going to talk about the emotional fortitude necessary to achieve these ends, I guess.
And then I'll also provide some tips, some new ways of thinking about how we might redesign school systems so that it can support everybody and be more inclusive and create new opportunities for people too. So check it out, and I'll see you at the end.
Okay, well, thank you. This is Kyle. Hello, chat people and scribbles. Hello, Kyle. All right, so this is going to be an education, and an education about education. I can't wait, because it's the hows and the whys that I'm most interested in.
I'd just be curious, like, what are some of the things you're thinking about in this condition we're in right now with a pandemic, social justice issues? I know equity is at the forefront of your district.
Okay, just because it disappeared there, and in case you're listening at home, the person he is speaking to is Kirk Schrum, Chief School Leadership Officer at Henry County Schools. I don't know exactly which Henry County we're talking about, but either way, that is who our host, Anthony Kim, is speaking to. I should learn how to narrate these things better for those listening in the car or something.
Now with a pandemic, social justice issues, I know equity is at the forefront of your district. Just blurt out what you're thinking.
I mean, I think, to me, one of the first things that come to mind is value, and how are we, through our actions and what we're thinking as an organization, how are we showing value to our students? How are we showing value to our community? How are we showing value to our workforce? To me, it goes back to that every person that's part of our school system feels valued.
Okay, I guess, and I do this often, define value. What do you mean value? And I understand maybe that's too much of an abstract, but okay, feels valued. How do you make someone feel valued? I have a sneaking suspicion that once again, I'm going to be asking the how question a lot here.
And feels that they are part of the solution and that we're taking intentional efforts to capture their voice, to capture the teacher's voice, to capture the student voice.
Gobbledygook. The solution to what? What is the problem? Articulate the problem. Articulate what value is. Articulate the steps you would take to achieve these things. Oh, come on. Anyway, there's a card up that says everyone should feel like they are part of the solution and that their voices are being captured. Captured? That's an interesting way of putting it.
Capture the parent voice, and so that they feel valued and that they feel heard.
I cut him off, so I'm gonna back up just slightly. Capture the parent voice? Is that what he said?
Feels valued and feels that they are part of the solution and that we're taking intentional efforts to capture their voice, to capture the teacher's voice, to capture the student voice, to capture the parent voice, and so that they feel valued and that they feel heard.
About what? To what end? What is the problem? And then what is your solution? How does capturing the voices of students, teachers, and parents lead you to a solution? I know.
What are some ways we could help motivate and inspire the people around us?
Okay, and again, before it disappears, who he's speaking to is Dr. Deborah Wortham, the superintendent of the Roosevelt Union Free School District. Okay.
I think we're in a place where that's going to be significantly needed in the next couple months.
We start by building confidence in the people that are approaching this work. This is hard work, I must say.
The work. It's always about the work, the mission, the labor. Uh-huh.
And it's heart work.
Oh, no. It's hard work and it's heart work. Oh, Lord, my teeth are melting.
And we start by selecting a common text.
Uh-huh.
A common text.
Is it a religious text?
Such as Growth Mindset by Carol Dweck.
Well, okay. The book that has appeared on the screen, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success, How We Can Learn to Fulfill Our Potential in Parenting, Business, School, and Relationships by Carol S. Dweck, PhD. So you want to unify your, teachers, staff, community around a common text. So you're promoting a book. You're promoting a self-help book as the solution. Okay.
And reading that common text and reading it out loud and reading it together and taking chapters and dissecting chapters and making analogies and relating that to our own personal experiences.
You're talking about Bible study. You're talking about sermonizing a self-help book. Are you serious right now?
And we develop our common language. When you develop that common language, then you are able to communicate. I can be in the mall and I can hear someone yell, "The jigabee."
Uh-huh.
Then I know they're in the students have the relationship, the teachers. Only if you're a part of this district do you know Fajigabee.
So you want to create a lingo, a secret language for your school district and your people to, I don't know, tribalize them while centering them on a specific text that you all read, dissect, and relate chapters to your real life. Oh, man.
And Fajigabee is, you take the first letter of find out how great you can be.
All right. If this isn't like my 9-cassette series of self-help advice kind of nonsense, I don't know what is. Oh boy. Thank you, Pecoraro, the Driving 8-Man, for the #1 Dogcat Fox. We are #1. We are #1. Okay.
Find out how great you can be.
Yeah, no, you said it the first time. Turning it into a mantra doesn't make it any less creepy.
Fajigabee.
Yes, I know. Repetition, mantra, I get it. Surrounding everyone around a singular book that leads you to all life's answers. Yeah, no, I understand.
Is how we pronounce it. And it is our word of confidence, of encouragement. I'm recognizing what you're doing.
Yeah, oh gosh, can I think of a similar thing? Oh, hallelujah. Amen. Something like that.
It's great. So steps. Identify a text, master the language of the text, turn it into conversational behavior in everything that you do, when you schedule, when you teach, when you have professional development, when you greet each other, you're constantly referring to the text.
You are describing the foundations of a cult. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You are describing the foundations of a cult. And you're heading up a school district. Wow. Right? Wowie, wow, wow. Exactly.
When you surround yourself with the right people in an organization, and you begin to set the expectation that we are going to have employee voice, and what people are experiencing is important, they will hold you to that, right? They will say, hey, we talked about that this summer. What's next, right? And I think that, to me, is a sign of a healthy organization, when we are willing to be transparent with each other and challenge each other to get better.
Get better regarding what? Challenge each other regarding what? I mean, I ask this a lot. Give me an active example. Because I can only, because without information, without detail, I can only sort of like imagine what you're talking about. And I'm trying to imagine, in my own real life example, me working at the company I work for. Okay. And the company I work for is not a school or a school district, but challenge each other. Like, in what way? The company makes a product. I have a job in the company. My contribution helps or supports one aspect of what we do. Okay. My area of involvement and expertise is relatively small in relation to the rest of the company. Challenge my boss. Challenge each other regarding what? What are you talking about? I don't know what you mean. Because when I think about challenging each other and hold each other accountable and well, A, I ask for what? And B, then I ask, how does that work with the regular hierarchy and chain of command in any organization? Because you're not a school district where everyone is the CEO, so to speak. There is a chain of command. There is a mandate set by the higher ups, and the people below that are meant to follow it. So what do you mean by challenging? What are you talking about? And I know I'm always asking this stuff rhetorically, but it's necessary. Anybody listening to this, whether you're on board with what I'm saying or otherwise about the subject matter, if you're going to give a presentation, if you're going to talk to somebody about a subject, I would just ask, that somewhere in there, if you're talking about a concept or a problem or a solution, that you include an active example somewhere in there, some detail. Don't always talk in abstracts. I know that sometimes for the sake of economy of conversation, you have to generalize. But when it comes down to things like this, don't talk in ambiguities all the time, please.
We have to lead as leaders in educational organizations by modeling it. We can't just expect that schools or other entities are going to do that.
Do what? Model what?
And then I think there's a great connection here to what's happening in our community and how are we working with our community elected officials? How are we working with our stakeholders that may not have a student in the school system? Because the conversations that we're having in a school system are the exact same conversations communities are having.
Okay. Conversations about what? Articulate the problem. Describe your solution. It's a very simple concept. Right? It's like writing an essay. I always think of these things as writing an essay because obviously my English degree. You have your introduction. You give a summary overview of things. And then you go into further detail in the body and you give examples, you compare and contrast, and then you wrap up with a conclusion. Okay, but you have to at least describe what you are going to be discussing and then give details about how whatever you have to say relates to the topic. You are an educator, right? You are an administrator of a school district or a part thereof. And at the very basics of describing a situation, writing a verbal essay seem to absolutely fail you. Or, and here's the other conclusion I can only come to, either you don't know what you're talking about, or you have no way of presenting information, or you're actively concealing details because either you don't have them, or you understand that saying them out loud might seem kind of sketchy to the rest of the world. I don't know what to think because you're not telling me. Thank you, Johnny Sislowski. Professional development and teaching, oxymoron. I don't think that's necessarily so. You can find professional development in being a teacher. You can become a better teacher over time. Just like with anything else. I remember there was a teacher I had in high school who they ended up in high school as like their first teaching job. Right. And I had a class with her in my first year. And you could see, she was a nice lady and everything, but you could see that she was kind of scattered. She was still trying to get things down, so on. And then I just had one class with her for like a semester or something. And 2 years later, in my senior year, I had another class with her. And since I hadn't spent any time with or around her in 2 years, it was night and day. She had learned so much about how to do her job. She had her rhythm down. She was far more professional. That's perfectly fine. The problem is defining what you mean by professional development. What about anything our speakers so far have said has to do with education? Right? Either education of the students or education of the teachers. We're talking about behavior modification as far as I can tell, or instilling some sort of like philosophy. How does that relate to the educational standards of the schools? How does that relate to the benefit of the students as they are educated or the teacher's ability to educate? They haven't said if there's anything at all. And so, as always, it comes down to define your terms. Avoid abstraction when you're talking about detailed plans of things. I mean, I can at least appreciate credit where credit is due. The other speaker, the other doctor, she had like listed out the steps that she had as a plan for her situation. Find a book, right? Make that book the center of all things. Create a language and a conversation around this book. I'll give her that much. What was all of that supposed to solve? I still don't know because they haven't articulated the problem. But anyway.
So throughout the summer and before we began this school year with principals, simply in conversation saying, hey, how are you? What's going on, right?
How are you? What's going on? Oh, revolutionary.
What are you feeling? Creating a safe environment where our principals really opened up. And I was part of many of those conversations, and they were able to share experiences they had had or have had or are having that deal with systemic injustice and other pieces, like things that have affected them personally. And then for others of us that may be in a privileged situation where we have not had to experience some of those things, to really be a listener.
You've discovered the art of conversation. Wow. Wow. How are you doing? How's it going? How are you feeling? Let's talk shop. Let's specifically talk about injustice as principles, not talk about how our schools are doing, not try to get some tips or tricks on how to manage better or delegate better or things like that. No, let's talk about injustice. And if I've had the privilege of not experiencing that, if the absence of experience of a bad thing equates to privilege, well, then I have not getting hit by bus privilege. I have not having my teeth pulled out by a evil Soviet interrogator privilege. I have not being force-fed asparagus privilege. I mean, come on. Thank you, Chicago Mike. Hi, Scribe in chat. Just got here. Thanks, YouTube. What did I miss? Well, I'd tell you, but see, you're not Lexi Mads, so I can't rewind. You'll just have to catch up. Or, I guess technically you can rewind the start of this, even though I'm going live, and it'll eventually catch up. But, yeah. Anyway. Hi, Mike.
And lead with empathy, right? Listen, that's not something I've experienced, but that means something to me. And so now what are we going to do together?
Well, you've not experienced injustice. What are we going to do together? Define injustice. What do you mean? What are you talking about? I really, really hate being a broken record, but they keep forcing me to ask the question.
I believe, and I've learned this and I've known this for many years, in educating the whole child. Some people talk about educating the whole child, and it's a buzzword.
It is a buzzword. The whole child. I can't count how many times I've heard that. And you know what else I can't count? How many definitions for that phrase. So lay it on me. What does it mean to educate the whole child?
But it's actually 5 components.
Oh, okay. 5 components of whole child education. All right. Like I say, credit again where credit is due. Our speaker here, she has given far more details of what she's talking about than the other guy. Still hasn't articulated the problem she's trying to solve, but at least she's giving us details on her process, whatever they are. All right, so first, step 1, start a cult. Step 2, educate the whole child. And now we're going to learn the 5 components thereof.
And it's making sure that students, staff members are healthy, safe, supported, engaged, and challenged.
Let me back up slightly to that list. Okay, so educating the whole child, you make sure that staff and students are healthy, safe, supported, engaged, and challenged. Okay, healthy, safe. You know, it's similar to sort of my philosophy about my concerns for those in my life that I care about. It's sort of like a sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but in my own sense of concern. Safe, healthy, and happy, in that order. You know, if you're not safe, that's priority number one. And then if you're safe, are you healthy? And then as long as you're healthy, then work on getting happy. You know, those are sort of, it's kind of basic, but that's how I think about it. When I think about the people that I love most and dearest, are they safe? Are they healthy? Are they happy? And I can worry about the next as soon as the former is taken care of. Okay, so the 5 components of whole child education: healthy, safe, supported, engaged, and challenged. Okay, the first 2 make sense, although, again, I have to step back because I always ask this question as well. Where does the responsibility of the teachers stop and the responsibility of the parents come back into play? Because over and over and over again, we have seen educators, individual teachers, administrators, and so on, speak of themselves or their role in the quote-unquote community as being almost paramount over the responsibility and the involvement of parents themselves. Paramount, parents, yeah. And that's always disturbed me, where the teachers seem to believe themselves to be also the parents, or more so the parents than the actual parents. But okay, so at school, I'm going to think about this until she says otherwise. At the school, you have to make sure everyone's healthy. I mean, to the best of your ability, since you're not a healthcare organization specifically. Safe, certainly. Okay. Supported, engaged, and challenged. In the realm of education, okay. You want to foster a productive, positive learning environment. Okay. I don't oppose those notions on their face. We'll see if she gives any specificity that makes me question that, however, in the next couple minutes. Thank you, Chicago Mike, again. So in the past, teachers were only educating half the child. Yeah, I don't know what the whole... She says, oh, some people think it's a buzzword. It is a buzzword. It means nothing. The whole child. You know, from 1950 to 1980, we were only educating the right arm of the child. Now we go for the whole child. Like, what are you talking about? Okay, setting aside the whole child thing, those elements for creating a productive school environment, okay. I'll stipulate until I'm given reason to think otherwise.
Challenged. And when I say healthy, I mean that they are healthy mentally, physically, and spiritually.
Spiritually? Okay, now admittedly, I don't know what kind of school district our speaker here runs. That is not your purview. All right. Granted that we are talking about a public school system, and I don't know off the top of my head. For all I know, she is running a private Catholic or religious school district or something. I don't know. But if we're not talking about that, you are not responsible for the spiritual lives of your students or staff. That is not your purview. That is not your territory. Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Hello, Scribbles in chat. A very large ratio of teachers doing this have no kids of their own. Often they're single as well. Makes you think. That could be true. I mean, perhaps you know it's true. I don't know it's true, but I've seen teachers who have kids. I've seen teachers who don't, and of course, plenty of teachers that don't specify one way or the other. But there is this sense of self-importance over the family unit that a lot of teachers seem to have assumed over the last several years, or at least insofar as the time that I've been paying attention to them. And it is kind of creepy. It's very disturbing. Perhaps more disturbing, but similar to what our speaker just said. You're responsible for their spiritual health. You're not. You are not. Unless you're running a religious school, unless the student and or the family have deferred to you for spiritual guidance in their faith. No.
There is a new pandemic, and that's called fear.
Uh-huh.
So as educators, we have to lessen the level of fear by making sure folks are healthy and safe.
That was always technically your responsibility. It has nothing to do with the pandemic. You know, I mean, when I went to school, for the most part, my health and my safety for the time that I was at school was under the responsibility of the teachers and staff there. If I fell down and hurt myself, I went to the school nurse and was taken care of. You know, we had fire alarms, we had fire drills, we had earthquake drill, the whole 9 yards, because they were also responsible for our safety while at the school. That is not a new concept. You're not saying anything novel. That's not an innovation of practice. That's just boilerplate. It's got nothing to do with the pandemic, got nothing to do with the pandemic of fear. That's just your responsibility as an adult with the authority and care over children. That's just it. Anyway, thank you again, Mr. Tickle Trunk. We're also going through a meaning crisis in the Western world because we live, in my opinion, too comfortably. We're creating our own dragons to slay. That's something that I've talked about for a long time on Lords of the Night and otherwise. I think I called it like the problem of abundance, right? I narrowed it down in sort of shorthand to, we don't have any enemies to fight anymore. You know, there's not the evil empire. We're not at war with the Nazis or something. There's no unifying cause to bring us together as a society. And yet that need in all of us to be the hero, the need in all of us to do the right thing is still present. And that need can be taken advantage of, can be exploited by others who will try to set you on the path of their own agenda and call it something virtuous, call it something where you're the hero. And that's why we're all off in 17 different directions these days, is because a lot of people, that need has been co-opted by ill thought out or ill-intended individuals or organizations. And so it's not clear. And we're all, in relative terms, living in such abundance that everything's, there's no real hardship. And I'm not talking about individual people. Don't get me wrong. I'm talking about in the general sense of things. And that's where I think a lot of the teachers and activists who blindly run off in these directions, looking for meaning to their lives, looking to be the hero of their own story, which are all sort of, you know, very human, very core elements of how we operate in the world. And they're yearning for something to grab onto and feel like, I'm doing the right thing, I'm contributing, I'm making the world a better place. And it's just been twisted in so many ways lately. And so we're seeing all these old bad ideas roaring back into existence. You know, racism as a good thing, communism as the better alternative, and on and on and on. It's very disturbing, but that's a whole other show.
Making sure that our young people have voice, engage them in social justice events.
Again, an educator extolling the virtues of instilling in her students a social ideology, talking about responsibility for their spiritual health, social justice events. Why and how is it anywhere near your responsibility or within your power to engage students in social justice events? And setting aside all that for the moment, I think throughout this entire talk of this one speaker so far, she has brought up parents once. And I think it was just capturing their voices. Outside of that, at least I think, was that her? Was that the other guy? Okay, I might be mixing them up now. But regardless, the number of times that she has talked about the involvement and engagement of parents in this process has been next to nothing. But you want to engage them in activist activities geared toward a specific social ideology. That is what you feel is your responsibility as an educator. Got it.
Engage them in knowing when and giving them the ear test and the eye test to know, to hear conversations where they're either they are being supported or they're not.
I have no idea what that's supposed to mean. Now we have a card up that says tips for the future. All right, some more advice. I'm ready to be educated.
Both teachers and administrators might be seeing that it is possible to offer more flexibility.
Okay, for reference, this is a speaker from the previous episode we haven't seen until now. Dr. Caitlin Dooley, Deputy Superintendent, Georgia Department of Education. Okay, so just for reference.
Some of the flexibilities that we've seen during the pandemic, which may offer some ideas for opportunities, are varied schedules throughout the day. We've seen some of our districts offer later schedules for high schools.
Like staggering it or something?
Exactly. And then childcare offerings for the teachers with children of school age and younger is also a really good workplace condition opportunity. Schools are, especially right now, are hiring long-term subs to act as a pod lead across multiple pods.
Okay, all of this sounds completely reasonable given the circumstances. Nothing ideologically bent here, just, pragmatism and basic necessities. Okay.
Kids, and I'm using pods to say not a classroom,
right,
because they're actually working in a vertical way with some of the school systems.
She said vertical, but she was motioning horizontally. So I thought that was funny.
So those are the kinds of innovative things that we've seen so far. And then, of course, we do have more and more teachers teaching online and wanting to teach online. What we advocate for and what would be an excellent policy recommendation is to allow teachers to work in cohorts where they have the online course provide the curriculum and they have a local teacher work side by side with those courses. So the local teacher acts as, I like to say, the mom or the teacher. But, I had two kids, they're grown now, but I would always say, I wouldn't sit them down and tell them to do their homework and walk out of the room forever. I would check in a few times and say, you need to stop eating your snack a little bit more and start doing work a little bit more. And
yes, parents engaging with their students' education. Yes, very, very good advice. Something that I advocate for strongly. I remember from the previous episode that most of what this lady had to offer wasn't anything weird or worrisome or controversial. She was talking about in the last one that kids should, especially in this circumstance right now, be issued devices in order to engage with their schooling. And she also talked about how, basic internet access should become a utility. I talked a lot about that on the last Lords of the Night episode. So this lady in particular, overall, as compared to the other speakers, has been completely fine. Like nothing controversial as far as I can tell. Interesting things to talk about, but nothing that was worrisome in anything that she was suggesting. So,
the mom check-in. Kids need that. Learning is social. They learn because they're they're having an affiliation with the content and with someone.
Yeah, but okay, and just to push back a little bit, she was talking about how teachers want to teach online and so on and so forth. Given current circumstances aside, when it comes to education, shouldn't we be pushing back towards getting into physical educational environments, sending kids back to school, getting teachers back into the classroom physically? Because yes, learning is social, but it's not just academic learning, it's socialization. It's learning how to deal with other people, interact with other people your age, learn things from people who are your elders, and so on and so forth. You know, I understand that the paranoia and the pandemic of fear, on top of whatever the actual pandemic is, has forced kids to learn from home, separate from, you know, physical space with their classmates and teachers. But shouldn't the emphasis be on getting us back into the classroom, not relying too much or building too much capacity to learn at distance? Because isn't that a major component of the whole process? And I'm not accusing our speaker of saying that or you know, defying the notion of going back to the classroom, just sort of speaking in the abstract. But that's something that's interesting to me as people talk about what's going to happen after the pandemic or later.
In relation to the content. And it's not as easy to do in an online situation as it is in proximity.
Yes.
So you can always supplement, you know, if you have a weaker teacher, you could supplement them with a strong curriculum that is offered and proven through an online mechanism.
You could. I don't know how you check on the quality of things if you're just going to rely on an online component to supplement a weaker teacher. Yeah, I mean, how do you monitor quality control online? Can you do it as effectively online as you could in the classroom setting? I don't know the answer to that question. I just wonder if that's necessarily a wise thing, because it kind of reminds me of like putting a kid in front of a television with an educational program and just hoping they learn something. And taking a weak teacher and giving them a online curriculum, paint by numbers situation. Does that actually help anything? I don't know.
The basic, the driving idea is that.
Okay, real quick. This is someone named Stephen Wilson, co-founder, Cadence Learning. And I have no idea what that is. Is it a company? Is it a school? Don't know.
Is the idea of one to many and one to few. That is to say, if you could take that phenomenal third grade teacher that you always want to bring your visitors in your school to, and that person could touch hundreds or thousands of students instead of 20 or
phrasing
30, as the case may be, imagine the possibility. So in a sense, the pandemic situation creates an opportunity to try some new things. And I think that's a very important one. Brian Hassel has written about this idea for years, and we were eager to give it a try. And then the one to few is that teacher works in conjunction with a local teacher who knows the kids, has strong relationships, creates the sense of nurturing, examines their work, leads the discussion, all of which has to be done, obviously, in intimate scale.
Wait, I'm really confused. I keep talking about, you know, teachers talking with a local teacher. Why wouldn't the teacher talking to the kids in the first place not be a local teacher or their teacher? I'm honestly confused. Like, are we talking about shipping off? And I don't know what's going on right now in different places. Maybe this is what's happening. They're having to assign students online to teachers from out of town. Is that what's going on in order to make up for the overflow or the complications or something? I mean, maybe he's talking complete sense and I just don't understand the context. But then again, it's kind of responsible. It's got the responsibility of the presenter to give me some context, and I'm not getting that. So yeah, I don't understand what he's talking about. Like, get a local teacher who knows the kids. Shouldn't the teacher teaching the kids know the kids? Am I missing something? I must be.
And the power of the cadence, hence the name of these two these two educators is what we're interested in. But the mentor teacher, as we call it, is that experienced award-winning teacher that you just want to linger in the back of the room for as long as you can because it's so captivating.
Yeah, I've done a few videos on some very quote-unquote award-winning teachers. Doesn't necessarily mean that what they have to say or what they believe is all that beneficial. They just won an award. It's kind of like someone with the title doctor in front of their name. Doctor of what? That doesn't mean much until I hear what you have to say.
And the partner teacher is that teacher's partner, of which there are hundreds around the country. And then we equip the partner teacher not just with the video of the mentor teacher, but with really great tools, excellent lesson plans, all the slides that the mentor teacher uses in presenting to kids, the student-facing materials, and most importantly, I think, the intellectual preparation, the professional development sessions weekly, and materials that accompany them to allow the teacher, the partner teacher, to go deeply into what they're about to teach.
Okay, I'm starting to get this. Okay, so he's talking about leveraging the online situation as it is, pandemic or otherwise, and enhance teacher education by pairing them up with a more experienced teacher somewhere in the country or somewhere in the world, and they can just sort of dial in and learn how to be a better teacher. I mean, I guess I don't see anything wrong with that per se. I was confused as to what he was talking about before. Sure. I don't know why that's a new thing though. Because I even though we're in it right now and we have been for the last year, I'm not thinking about everything in terms of the pandemic, right? I'm thinking about 6 months before the pandemic and after the pandemic is over. But specifically, what about any of this was unavailable before the pandemic? I mean, I understand that this guy's promoting his own company, so he's got something to sell. I get that. But how is that new? How is that tips for the future? Online collaboration, conference calls, everything has been available for at least the last 10 years in some way, shape, or form. And admittedly, earlier than that through basic email correspondence or otherwise. I mean, it's not inherently bad ideas or something. I just don't understand why he's talking about it like it's some innovative notion. These things have been going on for a long time now. So again, when you don't give me any context, I have to fill in the blanks myself.
The idea that if you come to class deeply prepared and loving the material that you're about to teach, understanding the likely student misconceptions, knowing what could go wrong, having your back pocket questions in hand, having observed the mentor teacher already go down the river in front of you and give that very same lesson, and to hear the story, what worked and what didn't, that's incredibly powerful.
Nothing is going to be as educational for someone than doing it themselves. You know, you can listen to all the advice in the world, you can watch all the examples in the world, but it's never going to mean anything. You're not going to find your own tempo for it until you're doing it yourself. So I'm not saying that dialing into a mentor teacher and watching a lesson plan being done or interacting with the students is entirely without value. I'm not saying that. But it is no more beneficial than going to school and listening to a teacher tell you how to do something and then having to then go out into the real world and apply it yourself. So sure, mentorship, apprenticeship, someone who knows what they're doing and so on, gain more skills, gain more knowledge. That's fine. That's great. I have literally no problem with that. What has that got to do with anything? And how is that some new concept? It's not a new concept. And insofar as it's an online experience versus a physical experience, that as well is not a new concept. And this is tips for the future. Okay.
Leads to great teaching.
All right, so now that we've gotten some concrete tips
Hold on. Concrete. I mean, I guess the most concrete tips we got was how to start a cult. So, all right, I'll grant you there were some concrete tips in there.
And we talked a bit about just the relationships and the deposits that we have to make in those relationships.
What?
In the next episode, I talked to Shane Saphir, who is the author of Listening Leader. And in that episode, we have this really great conversation around how do we know we're making progress towards making the changes to a more equitable education system and redesigning and reimagining what's possible in our schools for the future. So we talk about everything from kind of the metrics, the sense of belonging.
Is it just me, or am I just mesmerized by wondering what is he going to do with the level next? When is that going to become a visual aid? Or I don't know. I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for that other shoe to drop.
To the fact that there are really no shortcuts, and how we do the work at the central office level or at the leadership level has a ripple effect all the way into the classroom.
Yeah, it is the how. It is the how that I keep asking, and you guys are not giving me any answers. Except for start your own cult lady around self-help book, which I'm still not quite sure what problem that was meant to solve, other than sell copies of that book. Oh my God.
And so in the end, she provides some really substantial tips on actually how to start this work right away. So check out the next episode with Shane Saphir. I'll see you there.
Okay. Anthony, at the end of every episode so far, you've promised more is coming in the next episode than is actually delivered. And maybe that's just a clever cliffhanger device to get me to go to the next episode, and God knows it's probably going to work, but you really need to deliver. Because this episode, as far as I can tell, did absolutely nothing to supplement nor explain anything from the previous episode. There were speakers missing from this episode that were key in the previous episode. So if you were going to then move on to have them explain in detail how they do what they do, you kind of need to bring them back to do that. But you didn't. So you didn't. Thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk. Nothing I heard could be considered a rational thought. I award them no points, and may God have mercy on their soul. Yeah. Billy Madison. Rational, I guess it depends on your goal. Like I say, if you want to start your own cult around a self-help book, then that first lady, she knew what she was talking about. It's very rational. It is a time-worn, proven technique. Thank you, Johnny Hellcat. It's the level he beats his wife with. It could be. You never know. No. It's some kind of power object. He needs to have something in his hands. I don't know. Maybe in the first episode of this, which I'm hesitant to even go dig up if it's even worthwhile. Maybe he explains why he's holding a level. Maybe he tells us the secret. Maybe it has a name, like I said before. Maybe it's his friend. Maybe he takes it to classrooms and uses it as some kind of like visual aid and something. I don't know. All right, well, let's get a preview of next time on Bridging the Gap.
We know that people are really, really hurting right now. Not just the COVID pandemic, but this triple pandemic of economic collapse and racial injustice being unmasked daily.
Thank you again, Johnny Hellcat. The level is a better lover than his wife ever was. It brings him balance in his life.
We know it has a disproportionate impact on particularly Black students and adults, on students of color. And, are we talking about that?
Are we talking about whether the pandemic has a disproportionate effect on people of color? I don't know, Chad. in the last year, has that ever come up? Nobody's talking about that, are they? We really have to ask the question, is anybody talking about that? Oh boy, I don't know if I could stand watching that one. I'll think about that over the week. But well, there you go. You know, it amazes me, from organization to organization, YouTube channel to YouTube channel, speaker to speaker, school district to school district. You sit somebody down, you ask them some very pointed questions about how they do what they do, and you never get a straight answer. You know, or why they are doing it, right? Because if you're coming in saying you have a solution to a problem, you first have to articulate the problem and then describe how your solution addresses the problem. And then I, as the listener, can assess whether or not your proposed solution actually addresses the problem you've described. Or if I have any questions, I can ask them and conceivably get some answers. That is how I would approach one of these things if I was interviewing one of these teachers on this subject, right? So the goal is to create an equitable educational environment. All right. Step number 1. What does equitable education mean? And then listen to their answer. And if they give me a bunch of abstract, ethereal gobbledygook, I'd be polite. And then I'd go on to say, can you give me an active example from your experience of achieving an equitable educational result? And see what they say. And because you cannot have an informed conversation about anything unless both sides, in some way, shape, or form, are on the same page as to what is being discussed. And in edited things like this, I can't tell what was said before the cut or after the cut. I can't tell any of that. I'm only given what I'm given. But these videos are being presented, and this organization is posting them to their YouTube page to be informational, to be educational in some way, shape, or form. And they are not. Over and over and over again, they are not. They don't answer any questions. They don't describe any details. They don't give us any examples. It's just pablum. It's just noise. Or they give us something that sounds very detailed, but it makes no sense as to what we're talking about. How does creating a cult around a self-help, a very specific self-help book, one that she name dropped, how does that reach, quote unquote, equitable education? How does creating your own lingo within your cult create equitable education? I mean, I suppose if everybody's learning from the same book, which, by the way, is a self-help book and not an educational book, not a textbook, not an academic book, but a self-help book. If everyone's only talking and only shaping their lives around this one book, then I suppose in that way, everybody's getting an equitable education because there's only one source of knowledge. Is that the solution you're proposing? Is that how you achieve equitable education? I don't know. She never said, so I can only assume. And her role as an educator is to guide the spiritual health of her students? Really? Does that sound appropriate? Anyway, I've said my piece. I'll give a couple of minutes for you guys to comment if you have anything you'd like to say, and then we will wrap this up for the day. Thank you, Dan. Johnny Hellcat released the Snyder Cut. The Snyder Cut of this, I can't, it doesn't have enough explosions, that's for sure, or slow-mo. What we need is some slow-mo shots of Anthony and his level and him twirling it around between his fingers like a drumstick. That would be cool. Let's see. Mike R, LOL, that's a good descriptive term. Oh, you guys are talking to each other. You're not talking, you don't care about me. Yeah, you got nothing to say to me. That's fine. I know, I get it. You come here for each other. Right? I'm peripheral. I know. You guys are talking in class to each other. I'm up here doing all this hard work, trying to educate myself, trying to educate the world on what educators are educating the education system. You guys are sitting in the back of class passing notes. Okay, whatever. All right, I see how it is. I see how it is. Mike R, will be fun watching you lose your mind with that seizure, if you just do decide to make it your next video. Maybe next Sunday. We'll see. If something else doesn't catch my mind. If Hive Diversity doesn't have a new article come out or something. Mike R, look at the above message. I saw that. Yes. Thank you, Mike. Lexi Mads, you ignore us most of the time. Haha. Hey, there is a time and a place for me to pay attention to y'all. I mean, if I'm not paying attention to the video, I'm not really doing my job, so to speak. Besides, I know I talk about you all the time, Lexi. I talked about you before. I paid attention. Jeez. Pinkala, well, if you would pay attention to chat during these streams, you'd be able to see your comments during the stream. Okay. 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 I see how it is. I will endeavor in the future, in my professional development, to pay more attention to chat during the course of the stream. As I pause to make my own comment, I will glance at the chat to see if there's anything pertinent also being said. And if so, perhaps I'll mention it. If it is germane to the conversation. I have seen my fault. I have seen my flaw. You have pointed it out. I have accepted it. I have internalized it. I will take this on. I will take this on board and use it to further my own development and evolution as a YouTuber. Thank you, chat. Thank you so much for bringing this to my attention. I'm just going to run that up the flagpole and synergize my paradigms and hopefully achieve a more equitable presentership. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me for this, as bewildering and disturbing as it was. If you'd like to hear more from me or Satsu 2 Cents, you can find the both of us tomorrow night, Monday night, on Satsu 2 Cents' channel at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, for the next episode of The Lords of the Night, where we will talk about the news of the day, news stories that you submit, what we've been up to on the internet, and then your questions and comments. Let me know in the comments if you'd like me to continue going through this particular series. I will take that on board as well. But if I do, it'll be next Sunday sometime. If for no other reason than Sunday is a good day to do this kind of stuff. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone is so well behaved, you have very little to do. Everyone who donated, thank you so much for your generosity. I really, really do appreciate it. Something I don't mention enough, but I need to start doing more so. If you share the link to my shows or my streams or my videos at all, whatever, on Twitter most particularly, please be sure to tag me in those tweets so I know that you've done so I can thank you personally, because I really, really do appreciate it. As you know, YouTube does a terrible job in letting people know when we are doing stuff or when we have new material out there. And so you guys are our best algorithm. Thank you, Pinkala, Driving Ape Man. That's a bingo. Is it though?
Bingo.